system, health, climate change, and river biodiversity, for which we have an eminent faculty with us joining us online, Dr. Jayanta Bandyopadhyay. He has retired as professor from IIM Calcutta. Institute at the New School in New York. His research has promoted several important public interest litigations in India. Professor Bandyopadhyay has authored 14 critically acclaimed books and monographs, in addition to around 140 plus research papers and popular articles. So we have a very eminent faculty here with us joined online. Thank you, Jayanta sir, for joining us. This training has started in the morning, and we have participants from 24 participants from 10 states. The cohort is having experts, scientists, research scholars, national and state level officers, journalists, architects. So it's a kind of wonderful team. And the team is waiting for your lecture. Over to you, sir. Bandyopadhyay, sir. Thank you. Sir, please unmute your mic. So towards the extreme left downside, there's a mute mic and video. Yes, sir, you are unmute now. Can you hear me, sir?
I can.
Yes,
Can
yes.
you?
Now it's clear, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, and you can also see me.
Yes.
Is it all right? Okay, so with the technical things getting sorted out, am I right in saying that you are hearing me and you are also able to see me?
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Okay. This is a very big honor for me to be invited by the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation for this very important program on river health. I have known Dr. Swaminathan for very long years and have on many occasions interacted with him. And I wish him good health. And with that wish, I start my presentation. So if you are with me, it is the title slide, which is river health and water security. I have provided this as the opening because water security of all human societies are quite directly linked with the rivers. Now, when we talk of river health, what is health of a river? It is the good health of a river is defined by the flows in rivers in good quality and in accordance with the global hydrological cycle. On the contrary, when there is an issue of water security, humanity has always intervened into the global hydrological cycle to get security. So I will start with a description of the global hydrological cycle. So please go to the next slide. For all understanding of water security and river health, I think it is necessary that all of us have a clear picture of the global hydrological cycle. Now, this is the global hydrological cycle. I will start with the most convenient point, which is evaporation from the ocean. Water goes up from the ocean and it divides itself. As it vaporizes, it divides itself to two distinct precipitation processes. One is back to the ocean, and the other is carried by the global atmospheric circulations carried into the land. And this is where our most important source of water starts to come to us. That is the evaporated moisture gets precipitated as either snow or as rain. If we have the Himalaya-like high mountains, we often get snow. If we do not have, we get rain. But that is what is the origin of the rivers. What you can see here as the surface runoff. Now, from the surface runoff, we lose a lot of water as it moves, as evaporation and transpiration, jointly called as evapotranspiration. And the river also feeds the groundwater. So we have precipitation dividing itself in three ways. The main flow of the lake into the lakes and the rivers, the upward movement of evaporation and transpiration, and the downward movement into groundwater. Now, humans have intervened even from the sky. We have now ability to create artificial rain by putting up water seeding materials into the sky. And that is how, when there is a drought today, we do not really get very, very upset. There are techniques of causing rain if there is some cloud above us. Similarly, as I will show later, when we have a lake or a river, we pick up water. Lakes and rivers have been the most easily accessible water for humans. Then comes the groundwater. So this is, I am not going into the quantification. The amount is changing rapidly under global climate change. but you can get a general idea of the amount of water which is circulating in the whole atmosphere and hydrosphere and the cryosphere. So this is the global water cycle. Please recall this. Now, as I said, the rivers are originated by not by anything on the surface of the earth, but I always say that rivers are originating in the sky. If there is no precipitation from the sky, there will be no river. And in the South Asian context, I will talk very briefly on South Asia and then come to the Indian context. We have the most important of sources of our water that gets inland is the South Asian summer monsoon, which is shown in red line. The second most important for, I would say, the East Asia and Southeast Asia is the East Asian summer monsoon, which both of the monsoons come in May, June, July, August. The blue one is the East Asian summer monsoon. And from November to January, we have two separate breeze causing precipitation. One is, of course, the reversal of the main monsoon and the precipitation in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu in November, December, January, as well as in the northern part of the South Asian continent, we have the westerly flows, which comes from all the way to Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, and they carry moisture eastwards towards China, Tibet, as well as along the Himalayan foothills. They come all the way up to Kolkata or even sometimes Dhaka. So in the winter, we get a lot of snow in the northwest. In the summer, we get a lot of precipitation in the southeast. And that is how our Brahmaputra is a mighty river, but it has only maybe 9 to 10% of snowmelt. Whereas Indus, which is not a mighty river that way, has about 50% of snowmelt in it because the rainfall monsoon doesn't very much penetrate into the Indus basin. These are the three and a half, I would say, that the reversal of the monsoon causing precipitation on the Tamil Nadu coast. These are our inputs. And from this input, we have to maintain ourselves, sustain ourselves, and secure our water. Next, please. Now, this is a map which shows where all these precipitation from the South Asian monsoon, the East Asian monsoon, and the westerlies are drained out. As far as South Asia is concerned, out of all the 10 major Himalayan rivers, our interest is in Brahmaputra, our interest is in the Ganga and Indus. And whole of what we can say peninsular India receives a different type of, a different measure of precipitation and is a very different hydrological entity. Now, I would go into the summer monsoon water precipitation in India, including Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, because that is almost a continuity of the meteorological, hydrological scenario. we can see that we have 2 or 3 very high precipitation zones. Is the western slope of the Western Ghats, where the first hit of the monsoon, South Asian summer monsoon comes, and the Meghalaya plateau, where the Bay of Bengal branch of the South Asian summer monsoon hits the highlands. Otherwise, we have a rather drier part in peninsular India, where the rainfall is not something like 11,000 millimeters as in Meghalaya, or along the Himalayan foothills, 3,000 millimeters annually, or in the western slope of the Western Ghats. The peninsular India, southern India are relatively drier entities. Now, this is where our rivers are originated. I talk about the total availability of water in our in India is approximately 4,000 billion cubic meters. Out of this total, this is precipitation. We can use, availability for use is about 1120 billion cubic meters. Some of the precipitation, of course, as I have described earlier, goes back to the sky immediately as evaporation and transpiration. Now, whatever is the usable, irrigation takes the maximum 85% of the water that we use goes for irrigation. And today, the groundwater irrigation covers 60% of the total irrigation. Next comes the industry. Industry and domestic, urban domestic use are in single digits even now. Then comes our unquantified uses. Unquantified uses, including you need water for navigation, but we do not have a clear quantitative idea of the water needs of navigation, though riverways are being identified for major transportation routes and areas are being identified for economic development based on that. Now, domestic, rural, and inland fishery also require water, but they have not been so easily quantified. So, hydropower does not consume water, but hydropower alters the flow characteristic of streams and rivers. Hydropower stops the flow for some time and then releases the water for a few hours when there is a need for hydropower. So these precipitation and their uses are given here. Much of it is carried by rivers, and rivers then feed into the groundwater. Sometimes all surface flows also directly feed into groundwater. Now, we have 4,000 billion cubic meter of water, but our problem of water security is that this water, 80 to 85% comes in the months of July, August, September. June, July, August, September. I am showing you here the hydrograph of Yamuna in Delhi and at Oxford, the rainfall and flow at Oxford. You can see that in the European context, there is almost uniform availability of precipitation every month. In our context, it is only in July, August, and September that we have some good amount of availability. And if we could drink all our water in July, August, and September, and remain without water for the rest of the year, much of our water security problem would have been solved. Camels solve their water security problem like that. They drink a lot of water. They are animals of the desert regions, and they can sustain themselves without water for very, very long time once they fill in their water sort of stomach. However, we need water more regularly, whereas our supply is more irregular. This is our water security problem. And when we think of drinking water, we protect our water security by taking water from rivers, from lakes, sometimes from other sources like groundwater, springs. Now here is this little girl carrying drinking water. This doesn't make rivers' health go down very much. But when we talk of billions of people, when we talk of highly irrigated agriculture for feeding those billions of people, the scale of our intervention into the rivers change. And with the arrival of reinforced cement concrete and with the construction of Hoover Dam in early 1930s, the whole scenario of river health changed. You can see two healths of the rivers. One is on the left side, another is on the right side. Depending on the valve and the engineer's choice, the health of the right side will be determined. Nature does not give you a guarantee of river health now with this level of intervention. You can now see from the Hoover Dam, slowly the large dam spread. This is the Bakra. And almost same is the look. You have a lot of water on one side and you have a controlled outflow on the other. So this is the situation where river health suddenly changes in great measures. Then rivers are also fed by groundwater, and groundwater is fed by rivers. Before that, let me say that as we go into the construction of large dams starting from Hoover, we have now saturated the process of construction of large dams. Good sites are all taken out. And you can see that with the rapid rise, there is a mellowing down of construction of large dams as well as the storage that they can provide. So we have come to a problem by measures taken to increase our water security, measures that have affected the rivers in basic ways, and there is now possibility of a decline, strong decline of the large dam process. Now, when the rivers are all dried up, not by rainfall scarcity, but by use of and transfer of water, people go down into the underground for, again, as I said, for small drinking water problems, you do not have a difficulty. So when we see tube wells taking little water for drinking, we do not exhaust the groundwater very much. But again, when we talk of irrigated agriculture and 60% of our irrigation comes from ground, we have a huge pumping out. And this again affects our river health very much, because groundwater and surface water are ecologically linked. When at the upper catchments, the surface water feeds the ground, at the lower part in the delta, the groundwater feeds the surface water. So if we have a declining groundwater situation, we have an increasing problem of river health.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Are you presenting your slides?
I am asking you to.
Okay, so we are presenting it, but
possibly I am not telling you next slide and next slide. Is that the problem?
Please, could you please mention the slide number right now?
Well, I am talking of the increase in irrigation potential of India. This is after the large dams and the groundwater. Beg your pardon, because while talking, I forgot to tell you that the slides needs to be changed. Sorry.
So right now you are with that slide which says in 1975 water scarcity was limited to a small number of countries, isn't it?
No. I have gone far ahead. This is the graph that shows the total irrigation potential of India.
Okay, total irrigation potential. Thank you.
Yeah. So have our participants missed some of the earlier slides? I can go back always.
No, actually, we have screened it, but it was not in sync. That's why. Sorry for the interruption. Please proceed, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Now, with if you see the earlier slides, the huge groundwater pumping, and the slide that shows the large storages like Vakra, earlier shown. Now I go forward again. We can have very satisfaction of a great amount of irrigation potential being generated in the country. But what is the impact of this generation is something I would like to talk. Now, this is the global picture of water availability in 1975. So mark our country, which is quite blue, that means comfortable, but projection for 50 years into 2025, which is not very far from today, we suddenly see whole of the country becoming a water scarce region. So this is the lack of water security. We have China also in a similar manner. So if I put these two slides, go back one, and the one next, suddenly we see by 2025, we have a serious water problem. I go further into the next slide, which is the picture of Kaveri at Tanjavur. And Kaveri has become known for quantitative water conflicts, and that is bad health of the river also. And this is the result of the growing water scarcity and growing water insecurity in our country. Now, I go into the next slide, which is the groundwater problem, some areas. 54%, this is the old data, it would be little higher even today. 54% of India, the groundwater is declining, rapidly declining. And the same area, 54%, but not exactly those areas to say. 54 is just a coincidence. The high to extremely high water scarcity, water stress or water scarcity in our country. And this has to be coupled with the issue of global climate change, which is, according to the most recent assessment report of the IPCC, number 6, AR6, South Asia is going to have a very strong negative impact of global warming and climate change. So quantitatively, we will have more and more river health problems. The other thing is water quality, and river health is equally important in terms of quality. Not only that you have full flow of a bad quality of water, it is not good health. You must have good flow of good quality of water. That is the health of the river. And there is hardly any large river in our country which is having the good quality of flow. Now, this photograph is there in my article given to you, published in India Today. I call it hundreds of people and one well. This is a crisis situation, insecure situation, and extremely important photograph that shows at least 300 people are trying to eke out a little bit of water from a well, which is going down, and you do not know when this will dry up. So this is an extremely good example of mass water insecurity and how people react instantly to such water insecurity. Now, time is not very, very long. I have just 4 or 5 more minutes. What is the insecurity related to? Is this unavoidable scarcity? Now, we have seen we are, in the totality, we are rich in water. But in periodic sense, I call it, we have 3.5 months of good water and 8.5 months of very big water scarcity. So when rivers dry up, we say this water scarce area. Suddenly monsoon comes, we have floods, and then we call it a flood area. And we have to live with that. This is monsoon. And what we have to do is then address our river health in our own ways, because we cannot borrow things from European hydrology, where water is, as I have shown, in Oxford, water is available almost every month at a reasonable amount of precipitation. We do not have that advantage. We have to drink water every day, but we cannot drink all the water in July, August, and September. So we have this problem of temporal and spatial variation in water availability. Added to that is our political decisions. They encourage more and more farmers to be less and less efficient in water use, because they are given free electricity, they are given all sorts of advantages because they produce the food for the country, but they use a great amount of water, which stands at a total efficiency of 33%. 33% is our general water use efficiency, whereas the water supply has a leakage of often in city areas. 40-45% leakage. We also have a very difficult policy question. In water scarce areas also, supplied water is often used for gardening or for swimming pools, whereas drinking water is not given the due priority. So we have a lot to think in terms of policy towards our river health. What is the very initial approach to this, our good river health policy? These are standard 3 Rs: reduce, reuse, and recycle. We have to reduce use of water. We have to reuse water again and again. We do not have the luxury of flushing water with high quality purified supplies. All of our urban planning has to go fundamentally in a new direction and recycle. Recycling is definitely very, very important. And these 3 Rs are river health improvement tools. Now, next slide is the stagnancy of water knowledge and policy in India. There is a very big disconnect between the academic world of water research and the practical world of water policy and management. This disconnect has to be minimized. The best will be a very close link between water academics and water management professionals. That has not happened very much. And what is more important is that our interest in new policy is also very, very slow. I refer to a few years back, the Ministry of Water Resources and Ganga Rejuvenation had prepared a document, several documents. One was the Water Framework Bill. The second was the Groundwater Bill. The third one was the new institutional structure for water sector. And the fourth one was the combining, I'm sorry, this is the third one, combining the Central Water Commission and the Central Groundwater Board to come out with a new structure for water governance in the whole country. Now, this has been lying in the ministry for years. There was some initial discussion, but over time, such important issues have not found entry into a informed public debate and informed acceptance into the governmental policy circles. So with that, I am saying that unless people who are listening to this, participants in this workshop are go back and read the Water Framework Bill or the Groundwater Bill. And since surface water and groundwater are ecologically linked, it is equally important that the Central Water Commission, which handles surface water, and the Groundwater Board, which handles groundwater, they also are linked together so that we have a more ecologically informed, holistic governance of water. So that is very important, but unfortunately that process has not been very given priority. Next is the whole issue of innovative steps. And these innovative steps, like the efforts which has not been followed up. We also have river science and engineering throughout the world moving very fast towards holistic approaches, towards interdiscipline. And we need to also get out of the very structural intervention into our rivers, which is a major cause of river health decline. And we need to go into a more top to bottom, origin to the basin, origin to the delta type of understanding. Last but not the least is the change in the hydrological pattern of our rivers due to impact of global climate change and global warming. This is something which we are still not understanding in a big way. The IPCC Assessment Report 6 should be read. It is a very voluminous document, but it is necessary that our informed policymakers and scientists read the AR6 and understand how temperature is going to rise in the future years, how evaporation and transpiration are going to take away water from rivers, and how the whole issue of climate change are going to alter cyclonic processes, going to alter our snowmelt processes, and we need to give due attention to the assessment report 6. It is not that, oh, there is a lot of hot air today. This hot air is going to remain with us for at least 150 to 200 years, even if we take all the corrective measures today. So I think I have taken quite a bit of time, and I am very hopeful that you all will understand that the little drops of water that makes our rivers, if the drops are healthy, the rivers are healthy. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir, for that inspiring presentation. And now the session is open for discussion. So can you see us?
Let me see.
You can just double click that MSSRF window.
I have double clicked, but I can see the smaller corner. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so now the session is open for discussion. I request the participants to interact with Professor Bandyopadhyay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
This
afternoon.
is Gunwant. Sir, we have heard a lot about interlinking of rivers in India, and many central governments have their programs regarding this. So, what is your opinion regarding the interlinking of rivers and the water security problems in India?
Now, interlinking of rivers needs to be more openly described, and its overall economic, socio-ecological impacts discussed. So far, we do not have that sort of thorough assessment for me to say whether this is going to be helpful for water security or not. Because by connecting two rivers, you will have a different geopolitics of water. And if we know that this is going to have more pro-people impact and sustainability is ensured, that it will lead to ecological restoration of rivers which have been damaged so far, it is good. But that literature has yet not come out. It is only lines on the map with the comments that it will improve this so much and that so much. So I, as a person believing in scientific arguments, would ask for what is the ecological impact? What is the economics of that ecological impact? Is it good impact or bad impact? Unless those are clearly laid out, just investment doesn't make a project good, as many of the large dams have later shown. Yeah, I am through.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
My name is Amrisha. Thank you so much for a fascinating session. I was thinking, I am a lawyer by profession. I work for water rights. Since past few years, right to nature or right for rivers, concepts like these using rights-based approach are developing. So if I have to argue for right to health for a river, primarily, how will I define what river health looks like? Is there a set accepted definition or a set of parameters we can refer to?
Well, it's an important question and development. There is a river rights activism going on. River rights is easy to solve when the population pressure is low and the region is not very industrialized. In the case of most of the large rivers in our country, we have a huge population pressure. We have a large irrigation demand, and industrial demand and urban demand is also increasing. Now, in such cases, how much water you can draw from the rivers is a complex political process. How much is, there is a word called environmental flow. Environmental flow is not something that you keep 20% into the river and everything will be all right. Environmental flow is a negotiated amount for which you know there will be either gain or damage. Good ecological economics is available today to assess the gains or the damages, and those who gain will have to compensate those who get damaged. Now, our governance has not yet come to that level that if you want to keep so much water for the health of the river, it is very good to see rivers healthy, but who will pay for the compensation? This is a major political question. It is emotionally correct to say rivers must have a health standard. Yes, of course. It has to have various standards, and in the literature background, I have given a paper outlining waves. Water flowing in a river is not water. It is water which absorbs lots of things while coming from the clouds to the surface. It generates energy because if the water is falling at the top of a hill, it has a lot of potential energy and you can store and take hydropower out of it. It has a biodiversity at each phase of its life. Rivers have biodiversity. And what is most important for our North Indian rivers is sediment. So WEBS, Water Energy Biodiversity Sediment, is a description of the health of a river. They have to be quantified, they have to be economically analyzed before we can say this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. So the idea is good, but a lot of new research, new thinking has to go on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon. I am Sai Dinesh. Thank you very much for the wonderful, informative session. So my question would be on the 2 points you have mentioned about the Water Framework Bill and Groundwater Framework Bill. Still, you have mentioned that it is still in a draft stage and it hasn't implemented yet. So my question is like, then even the National Water Policy, it has been formulated and implemented in 2012. But even only 16 states have been implemented the state water policy bill. The reason most of them mention that it is water is a state subject. So there is no implementation of water management or water policy in state at the state level. So what is the challenge, or how can we develop capacity at the state level to implement these steps? Because the nation level we have policies, but at the state level there is no implementation or acceptance
Yes.
state government.
See, this idea of state having the authority over flowing water is a very old British idea. We are stuck with that. The ideas today, everyone throughout the world are going on river basin-based governance. That's why I said that right from the origin of the river to the delta and the estuary, we must have a unified view. So we have some law on river basins, but they are very ineffective because the state thinks that they are the authorities and water is source of politics. I think we have to go back and if you read the documents that I mentioned, you will increasingly find the river basin becoming the geophysical sort of basis for water governance. Without that, I think we'll have lots of problems throughout the world. Lots of river basins, successful river basin management have gone on, and I earnestly think that we should also go for river basin-based governance.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your very excellent way of reviewing the situation in India. You had mentioned about the disconnect between the academic world and our political and the community world. How do we address this challenge? What are your suggestions for addressing this disconnect? Thank you.
Yes. Integrated knowledge is now globally recommended for management of water. There is a word called IWRM, Integrated Water Resources Management, for which you have to overcome, and I'm quoting from Gro Harlem Brundtland, that systemic thinking in water is badly limited, badly needed. And if we see how the governance of water is going on, it is still dominated by very disciplinary lines. and institutions must open up the education in water, not only in engineering, not only in water science. Water politics is important. Geography of river basin is important. The water culture is important. All these must come as a package of knowledge in water resources governance, integrated water resources management. I and my colleague, Mr. Modak, have recently written on the role of integrated knowledge in the governance of Himalayan rivers. This is available, Bandyopadhyay and Modak, free of cost from the ORF website. It is a monograph, a relatively longish document. But those of you who are interested in the future of water governance, the role integrated knowledge has to play, can have a look at that document. So academics must also come together and give leadership to governance. If you leave it only onto the traditional water resource ministry, it will be wrong to think that they are going to handle all the complex subjects very efficiently all by themselves. They need a lot of support, and academics must come together. But unfortunately, as there is an editorial in Nature Sustainability some 3-4 months back, they said that academics do not want to come together because of the disciplinary approach to promotions. If someone writes a very good interdisciplinary paper, the paper may not be that impressive in putting him or her up into the promotion line. As long as it is very disciplinary, it is recognized. And that editorial of Nature Sustainability is very, very important. One can, it is referred to in this monograph of myself and Modak. So integration is a challenge, but it has to be taken up straightway. Are we
Systemic
through?
thinking needed in
Pardon me?
water management.
Hello?
Sir, I'm sorry. I just didn't get the name of who you said you were quoting about systemic thinking needed in water resource management. Who was it that you were quoting?
Gro Harlem Brundtland. You possibly know of Madam Mrs. Brundtland's report of the what is it called? The report of the World Commission on Environment and Development, published in '83. But this reference is there in my monograph, which is available from ORF website, Observer Research Foundation website. It is Gro Harlem Brundtland was Norwegian Prime Minister and chairperson of the UN's first Commission on Environment and Development. BRUNDTLAND.
Yes,
Brundtland.
sir, the Brundtland Commission report. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I don't know whether it's right or question to ask or not, but it is already mentioned about integrated water resource management. and it has also been mentioned in the policy of National Water Policy of 2012. The process itself is a challenging because it involves many stakeholders, many institutions to take participant, and it has been 10 it has been decade now. And how the process should take forward, like what should be changed, or my question would be like, is integrated water resource management is the only solution for water resource management, or is it the right way in the future, near future?
Now, if I understand you, you are thinking that IWRM is a well-defined, prescribed process. IWRM came out as a global concern that very narrow engineering approach to water has to give way to a more holistic, interdisciplinary, integrated process. In '92, IWRM was globally promoted by the Global Water Partnership. But from '92 till today, the 30 years have passed, the mechanism, procedures, and checks and balances of what integrated water resource management should look like has not been very clearly laid out. It is a very difficult process, intellectually challenging process, and it has progressed a little, but it has not progressed to the extent that it is a very defined package that you buy a program and run it. You have to develop your integration for each river basin separate. So to answer your question is, IWRM is not a uniquely defined process. It needs intellectual involvement of all professionals, as I said, from politics, economics, water science, hydrology, geology, climate science. It is a real challenge, and have a look at the effort we have made for the what is called the water tower of the world, of the Asia, the Himalaya Hindu Kush. How to govern the rivers, 10 rivers coming out of the Himalaya Hindu Kush. So my answer is IWRM needs to be defined. It has not been defined. Some river basins have worked pretty well, but for our river basins, we have to do it. We cannot just, as I said, buy a program and run it.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir, for the inspiring session and the discussion we had. On behalf of the participants and the organizers, I would like to extend hearty thanks to you, sir. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. It's a pleasure.
So now we'll be closing the session for tea. Maybe before that, we have a couple of participants who came in between. Maybe you can have a round of self-introduction.
Yeah, myself, Dr. Jitendra Kumar Nagar, and I am assistant professor in Department of Environmental Study, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar College, University of Delhi. And before this teaching job, I did worked 4 years in Namami Gange, NGBRA, National Ganga River Basin Authority, and NMCG. And we are also working independently as a part of a NGO, Environment and Social Development Association. I'm the national secretary of this association. And it is a group of more than 7, I think 1,700 member all over India and abroad. And we are also working pond restoration. And there is a river, Hindon River. It is a tributary of Yamuna. And you know, Yamuna is tributary of Ganga. So we are working in some eco restoration and water conservation project. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good afternoon. Myself, Ravi Kiran. I'm from Hyderabad. I'm a